Hello and welcome to episode number 80 of The Pitcher or the Hitter, the podcast by the M-SABR Dynasty League for the M-SABR Dynasty League. I am Cam.
I'm Sahil.
And what a week. But first and foremost, you may notice something a little bit different, either in the audio or in the tone of our voices or just our general demeanor. We are recording in the same room.
Yeah, first time, 80 episodes, 79 separate, and this is the first episode we are recording together. I am visiting Cam. I'm currently in Casa de Can in Salem, New Hampshire.
Yeah,
and we are both currently drinking Narragansett lager beer. We've had many beers this afternoon.
We have had we've had a lot. It's been a drinking kind of day, drinking kind of weekend. But we went on a beer tour of Portland, Maine. A lot of fun, having a great time. And now we're back here. We're recording in the same room, which means I can't mute myself if Sahil's talking and I have to burp or sneeze or something, which happens way more often than you would probably think.
Happens to me too. I've muted myself a couple of times while you've been on.
Yeah.
Talking. I do that quite a bit.
So there'll be more burps and sneezes and things during this episode, but it's a great time. Great to have you here, Sahil, in my home, in my state, in the general vicinity of me while I'm recording.
Yeah, this is the closest I've ever been to you while we have recorded of episode 80. We have
and it's a nice round number to commemorate too.
It is a nice round number to commemorate too. We've had some memorable round number episodes. Episode, what was it, 30? We did the 30 for 30.
We did.
I don't think we've done anything for the other round number episodes.
I feel like
50, maybe we did
50
something?
We might have. No, 50 was the post-finals matchup, so that was kind of special on its own.
Yeah, let's not talk about that one. I'm sure we'll do something for 100 here in 20-ish weeks. We might take a week off or two in between them, but 20-ish weeks from now, we will have an episode 100. I'm sure we'll have something planned that's special.
I'm sure we will.
Yes. Oh man. Well, let me ask you, since before we started recording, what was your favorite beer of the day that we've had?
Favorite beer of the day? That's a good question.
There were no wrong answers, I feel like.
I mean,
maybe there's a wrong answer too. There's a couple that were like,
the one we're currently drinking is, like the cheap little local one.
Yeah, it's still good. I like
bad.
This beer. It goes down well when you sip it. It's a good sipping beer.
It's a good sipping beer. It's a good podcasting beer. Good Strato beer.
Well, we had a few good beers this weekend. I feel like
a lot
like that. Who are good sipping beers?
Yeah, we kind of had a lot of. I've had a lot more sours this weekend.
I've had more sours than usual for sure.
I don't know. Yeah, my favorite beer. I really liked some of the ones. I really liked the one I had at Foundation. The Call of the North or whatever it was called.
Yeah, that was the third to last one we went to. Man, we went to two other breweries after that. Oh my god,
we went to a lot of places.
Yeah.
I also liked, Allagash, of course.
Oh my god, that Allagash Light. Let me tell y'all, if y'all ever visit Cam, the Allagash Light maybe had the best wheat beer I've ever had.
Oh no,
that was incredible. High praise for that. Cam loves it. Oh my god, that I was obsessed with it.
Yeah. But yeah, other than that, a lot of cool places, a lot of fun stuff. But want to go break down some trades? I'm trying to think of a way to transition into that, but I'm coming up blank. But let's
I have to say we're usually maybe a bit more sober enough to know how to do proper transitions into trades. But
I think it's less me being sober than it being past midnight. It being like 4 hours later than we normally record this.
I have to say, I'm a night owl, especially when I study. So I'm up till 4 or 5 a.m. Whatever, no problems. For Cam, this is past Cam's bedtime. We are recording on a Monday morning at 12:17 a.m. currently. So Cam is half asleep. But of course, that's Cam. But
what does that mean?
I don't know, man. You're Cam. You are you're Cam. I don't know what else to say, but we have a number of trades to talk about. Maybe this trade will wake you up. The first trade was a trade that you made. The Liam Hendricks Experience has agreed to trade Sean Murphy to the Off-White Sox for Alex and Zach's 2025 second. Why don't you talk about this trade?
Yeah, I feel great about this trade. I guess to start from the beginning, back in I want to say November
20 something.
November 20 something. Oh, there it is. November 11th.
Or 11th. Okay, I got that wrong.
I traded Carson Kelly and a conditional pick for Sean Murphy. And then I got essentially for the price of Carson Kelly and maybe a third round pick. And Carson Kelly was someone I would have cut anyway. I got a great month to Sean Murphy and a crappy couple weeks of Sean Murphy. But that's okay because I had Jonah Heim and I was kind of starting him over him anyway. And then I got a second rounder. So worst case scenario, I got a second rounder for a third rounder. But I also got some great play from Sean Murphy out of it also. I think I played this super well. And now that Adley's coming up, I don't need Sean Murphy super much or at all really because I've got Jonah Heim playing well. Adley's not hitting super well yet, but hopefully he gets there soon. All in all, from Conor's perspective, he just lost Sal Perez. Although, is he back now?
Sal Perez just came back this week, and that's where I'm kind of like, did Conor really need to make this trade?
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it was nice at the time, but yeah, with Sal Perez coming back now and looking at Conor's roster right now, he's rostering them both still. He's got Sean Murphy in his second util slot, but he's and I mean, I guess today he drove in a run and hit a double, so it was definitely nice to have in the slot. But overall, I don't know. I guess with the second util, it's a lot easier to slot two catchers, but I don't know how long Sean Murphy remains on his roster.
Yeah, here's my problem with Sean Murphy. Is like Sean Murphy batting like right in the middle of that A's lineup because the A's aren't particularly good. Like he's usually batting like third. He's going to get the homers and the ribbies. So he has 5 homers, 21 ribbies this year. That's great.
He's also back up to 5th in the player rater. He was down to 7th.
I like that as someone who needs him to finish top 10 in the player rater to get a third round pick from you. But he still has a 272 OBP and a 386 slugging percentage. So he is a perfectly acceptable as a fantasy catcher. He's not doing much else. And that OBP can be a detriment overall, especially with like Sal Perez is not having that good of a year, starting 2 catchers who have been struggling a bit like that. If it was Sean Murphy for a third round pick, I think it would have been fine. Sean Murphy for a second round pick, he can't really cut him after giving up a second round pick so soon. I almost feel like he's either kind of stuck with him or he has to find a way to trade him, but I don't really know. And I think you have some experience in just trying to trade him. Like, is he tradable to another team? I don't really know.
I don't know.
But I think in a vacuum, if Conor did not have a catcher who was a good catcher like Sal Perez, I think that's a good deal. In a world where he has Sal Perez and Sal Perez has come back, I don't know what he's going to do with Sean Murphy. And maybe this works for a couple of weeks and somebody is a catcher who gets hurt and they trade him. Like, for example, if Wilson Contreras got hurt for me, I'm sure I would ask Conor what the price is on Sean Murphy.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if I pay a second for Sean Murphy, but maybe I pay a third for Sean Murphy, for example. And maybe that'd be acceptable for Conor if he was trying to get him off his roster. But yeah, I think he might be stuck with Sean Murphy at the moment. And I don't really know what he's going to do with him. But again, as a top 5 catcher this year in the player rater, it's not like he is a burden to roster. It's just I wouldn't want to be rostering him.
I think you're right. But let's move on to the next trade now. This was definitely an interesting one. Team Resnick has agreed to trade starting pitcher Jameson. It is not his last name is not in the sheet. Maybe that'll be fixed by the time this podcast comes out. But right now, it's not Jameson Taillon in the sheet. It is just starting pitcher Jameson to the Deep Sea Devers for Bailey Ober and Brandon Fat. Is it pronounced Fat? Fad?
I think it is Fat.
Fat. He's
ends with the T. He's actually on a pretty good year in the minors from a strikeout to walk ratio. I think the ERA is a little inflated, but I think the FIP's lower. I think that he's actually been pretty solid in Double-A for
Either
for the
way, there's
D-backs.
a fat chance he does well in the majors.
I think really the relevant pieces of this trade are Bailey Ober and Jamison Taillon. What I'll say about
Absolutely.
this trade is I think you could go either way and say either, hey, like Jamison Taillon maybe doesn't have the track or he has a track record in the past, but he's coming back from the injury and he hasn't pitched that long this year, like as kind of a solid starter, and maybe you're a little skeptical. But I think for Ruthvik as a team that's trying to win now, I think I'd rather have Taillon. But I think for Anthony as a team that's trying to build a bit for the future, I think I'd rather have a 26-year-old Bailey Ober. Bailey Ober is a guy I really like.
He's got 304 FIP.
Yeah. He maybe doesn't have the hype of some of these young starters that are coming up. Bailey Ober's already 26. But I think Bailey Ober could be a pretty decent starter in the majors. Do I think he has a ton of upside? I don't think so necessarily. Do I think Bailey Ober could be a solid like SP4-ish for Anthony for the next like 5 years? Yeah, sure. And I think that's better than trying to gamble on Taillon, who is 30 and does not have maybe the best history of staying healthy and being a competent pitcher. So I'm all for this trade for both sides. I think it's a win-win. Taillon's having a very good year, but that K rate's not really high. I wonder if there's a little bit of regression because that home run rate's at a 0.71. I wonder there's a little, especially pitching in Yankee Stadium. I wonder if there's a little bit of regression. And that walk rate too has never been as low as it is right now. And I wonder if he has a 2.49 ERA right now. His FIP's 305, xFIP 359. I wonder if he pitches a little closer to that xFIP for the rest of the year, which would be very solid. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know if I'm looking at him and thinking like fantasy ace, but I do think he's a very solid piece of Ruthvik's rotation.
Yeah, I think this deal really it's kind of a win-win and accomplishes what both teams set out to do. I'm not sure I have anything else to say other than I guess Ober does have a lower FIP at the moment than Taillon does. I don't trust Taillon to stay healthy. He gets hurt constantly. He is constantly getting injured. Yeah, I think Ober's a good get for a team like Anthony, who's hoping he'll be a staple in that rotation for the next several years.
No, absolutely. No, I think this is kind of a win-win deal.
All right, moving on now. The next deal, you acquired Nelson Cruz in exchange for a second rounder and a conditional third. That condition, if Cruz ends the 2022 season with 25 plus homers, you will send your next available third to EBO. Why don't you talk through this deal? Nelson Cruz, I mean, he's been hitting great the past 3 or 4 days or so. But yeah, how'd this deal come about?
Yeah, so I asked for Nelson Cruz from them actually. Well, so first in the offseason a couple times, and also like maybe like a week and a half ago. And Zane was like, he wanted to hold on to Cruz because Cruz was getting a little hot. And he was like, let's see where this goes. And Cruz has still been hitting well. He hit really bad in April, but he's been hitting a lot better in May. The power hasn't been there as much, but he's getting on base a lot. I initially was talking deals for some younger players who had eligibility at some different positions. And then I decided like, hey, like, you know, this wasn't working out. Like, let me pivot back to Cruz. And, I decided to go get Cruz. You know, as an Orioles fan, I always think very fondly of the 2014 season. I've owned Cruz before in the year I won the championship. So always a big fan of him. Always fun to be able to have him and be able to root for him. But I think he's better than he performed in April. I think for the price of my 2023 second and a conditional third round pick, I don't think it's a ton to give up, even if Cruz kind of busts. What I will say though is that, and you'll appreciate this, you know, I gave up Joey Votto before he came back from COVID. I kind of thought, you know, after getting Mancini and having Freeman and Alonso Muncy, I wouldn't have had the room for him. But what I kind of should have realized was like, hey, like room always clears up somehow. Things always work out. I would have had room for Votto, and I wonder if just keeping Votto and still having that second round pick as opposed to giving up the draft capital for Cruz would have been a little better. That being said, like Cruz is the sack cast numbers look a bit better. He's still hitting the ball fairly hard, maybe not as well as previous years, but I wonder if there's a little more upside with him for this year. Obviously Votto's like 4 years younger, which is crazy to say because they're both like very old. They're both ancient, but I wonder if Votto maybe is a little more in the tank than Cruz, but I'm so happy with this deal. I don't feel like I gave up a ton to make this gamble, and honestly Cruz has been really solid for me since I acquired him on a few days I've had him, so I'm not like complaining. I'm pretty happy so far. He's batting fourth in a lineup with Juan Soto ahead of him. Like he's gonna drive in runs, I think.
Yeah, he definitely has. But yeah, moving on to another one that objectively is a good deal for you, but it literally cost you the matchup this week. You traded JP Fire Ice into Yuki for Kendall Graveman. If you had not done this, you would have won, even though in the long term, this, in my opinion, will be a better deal for you. I think Kendall Graveman is going to get a lot of holds.
Yeah,
he's got a defined role. JP Fire Ice, and who the hell knows? It's the Rays bullpen. What is going on there? Colin Poche has got 2 saves, and then he just got a hold today.
Yep. Which meant Fire Rising got the save.
Which means Fire Rising got the save. Exactly. And then when Andrew Kittredge comes back, who even knows? So in the long term, Kendall Graveman, good. But JP Fire Rising, maybe we can even use this as a transition to your matchup. But yeah,
I think so too.
Yeah, you lost because JP Fire Rising would have gotten you a save that would have flipped your matchup.
Yeah, so just to fully explain the situation for you all, I lost saves, 1 save to 0 saves. There's a couple opportunities this week where I thought I could have gotten a save. Giovanni Gallegos did not get a save this week. The Cardinals had 1 save opportunity this week, but because Gallegos pitched the day before that and Ryan Helsley had not pitched for a couple of days, and chose to put Ryan Helsley in to get the save. It wasn't supposed to be a safe situation, but I forget who the Cardinals reliever was that came in, but he struggled a bit. And it made it a 4-2 game, and they brought Helsley in for the last out or two. I streamed Art Warren today.
Yeah.
Res reliever. Cam and I were in a Boston hotel, and I walked out back into the room, and it's like, guess who I'm streaming today? I was like, this is gonna work. And to my credit, Art Warren came on for a save opportunity. He just blew it. Art Warren might have cost me to win, but JP Fire Rising got a save today after mostly being a holds guy. Kendall Graveman pitched today, but when the White Sox were losing the game, and not in a save opportunity. But I think it's objectively the better trade. So like you said, I think the Rays relievers, who the hell knows with them. The one thing I look for holds, guys, is either you are elite in the ratios, so you're going to help me there, or I know what role you are going to have in that bullpen. The one thing I love about Kendall Graveman is I know when the 8th inning comes up for the White Sox, 9 times out of 10, Kendall Graveman is coming out of the pen and he is pitching in that 8th inning. And as somebody who puts a lot of stock in holds, I'm leading the league in holds again this year after leading the league in holds last year. Kendall Graveman was a guy targeted before the season because I knew that he was going to have that position, and I wanted him this year. So this worked out nicely for me. It's a bummer that Fire Rising got the save. I don't get that save, but like, look, at the end of the day, I think in the long run, I think I'll make out better. It's kind of funny to me that Yuki was willing to trade for a guy a day after I picked him up, even though he was on his watch list. He kind of regretted it. And it's not like it's not like, Graveman was going to be his cut.
Exactly. Yeah.
He's
a really
came out and said
guy.
That. So yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious who would have been his cut. But I think in the long run, it works out for me. I'm more of a team who has conceded that, like, of the bullpen categories, I'm going to win holds and not saves. But there's a reason I keep somebody like Gallegos on my roster, because obviously weeks like this week, maybe I could have gotten a save, which is a transition into our matchup this week. I tied EBO 6-6. And honestly, if you're keeping track of how my matchups have been going, it hasn't been a surprise. I seem to tie every other week. I am this year's version of the 2021 EBO, who seemingly just tied like every week. I'm now 3-1-3. Honestly, it wasn't so the pitching week's a little skewed because I accidentally started Gallegos when I didn't realize I would have didn't need to start him and could have started Stroman on Sunday, and would have Stroman would have put me over if I would have started him. I didn't realize I would have been over. I miscounted or something. I don't know. But I would have had if you include Stroman, I would have had 8 quality starts this week. A very good job by my starters this week. The relievers were just not able to rack up holds, which, you know, I'm the number 1 holds team, so it's kind of weird that I wasn't really able to do that. And EBO had a little better offensive week than me, not in terms of OBP, but homers, ribbies, stolen bases. They very solid numbers there. I came 1 run short of being able to win this matchup. I left Jorge Mateo on my bench a couple times. One was because of a rain delay by the other guys in my lineup who I would have started, who I started over him. And his game started before I was able to replace those guys. A little frustrating. But I did tie EBO. And God, this is the way I put it. Erik finished was 4-3-1 through the first 8 weeks last year, got really hot at the end. Was able to pull out a W. I definitely don't want to start 3-1-3. I was hoping to be like 5-2, 6-1 at this point, like whatever. But I think my team is still in a position to make the playoffs. I still think I'm a very good team. I don't know if I call myself the best team in the league like I thought I was before the season, but I still think my team is very much in the mix to be able to win a championship. And I'm just going to use this as a motivation to keep doing better, you know, maybe make some more trades. I've made a few trades over the past 2 weeks, or just figure out how to keep pulling out some W's. But it's definitely disappointing to tie this week, especially when 1 run would have handed me to win.
Yeah, no, you've basically said it all. I'll talk from EBO's perspective. They had a great offensive week with the 59 RBIs, 16 homers. The pitching was not very good. However, they don't.
That's putting it nicely.
Yeah, 5.81 ERA, 167 WHIP. They did not look great. JV gave up 10 hits in 6 innings. Brad Keller was really bad. Tyler Rogers was really bad as well.
Like a 1/3 inning, 7 earned runs at the beginning of this week, and that was when I was like, I'm probably gonna win, or ERA and what was when I saw that.
Spencer Strider looked good. He's a guy that I've heard a lot of hype around. Look at that mustache right here.
He has a great mustache. He kind of reminds me of Dylan Cease's mustache, or like Matt Carpenter now. Like if anybody see Matt Carpenter's mustache now that he's on the Yankees, he's gotten rid of the beard, but he has the mustache. It's a pretty awesome mustache. It's a nice old timey mustache. But no, Strider's been really good. Kind of gives me vibes of like this year's Garrett Whitlock a little bit. But EBO just had some like individual pitching performances that were decent. But they had a few guys just really blow up, and that kind of tanked the ERA and WHIP. But their hitting, they really took off there this week. And God, I mean, Jock Peterson, they had the 3-homer game, 3 homers, 8 ribbies.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, Mookie Betts arguably was the better hitter this week because he's great. But I'm going to give matchup MVP to Jock Peterson just because you traded him away, and he also led this team with 13 RBIs this week, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, Jock keeps coming back to haunt me. First against Anthony, and then when I traded him to EBO, I forgot that I played EBO literally the week after. So Jock has just been a thorn in my ass. I'm very excited not to have to play Jock again anytime soon. Oh my God.
Unless he's traded to whoever you're playing next.
Okay, we're not going to contemplate that possibility. I like to think he's going to stay on EBO for a little bit. I think I play EBO again at some point. I don't think EBO is one of the teams I only play once. I only played EBO once last year. Interestingly, coming off the year I played them in the finals. Somehow I only played them once, but I think this year I play them twice. So maybe I'll have to play Jock again. But I'm not looking forward
I
to
sure
it.
hope so.
Yeah. But anyways, enough about my disappointing tie, which I feel like we're talking about way too often. I tied once last year. I've tied 3 times this year in the first 7 games.
You're turning into EBO.
Am I EBO at this point? It might be.
I don't know. I think as for your team, if whether you've posed the question as to whether I'm worried about your team, I think if your goal is to finish in the top 2, then I would say, yeah, I'm worried because I feel like me and Erik are looking like clear front runners for the top 2 seeds. So I'd be worried about your team finishing top 2, but in general, worried about your team's future and worried about your team's ability to make the playoffs and make a run. I'm not worried about that.
Yeah, I mean, look, you and I finished in the top 2 last year, and both of us lost in our first playoff matchup. Erik won 3 playoff matchups and won the championship. So I don't think having the bye is a prerequisite to winning a championship. It is certainly nice. It certainly gives you an advantage in those matchups where it's like, hey, you could tie and still advance. I don't think it necessarily means anything. Also, I am a game and a half back, or no, a game back of you all now. Because I was a half game before. That's not something I can't overcome hypothetically. Especially we still have like 13-ish weeks. 13 or 14 weeks.
13.
That's plenty of time. We'll see what happens. I'm not super concerned about it. I do play Yuki next week, so we don't know how the last one went, but I seem to do well in the even weeks, so maybe this one will work out, but we'll get to that later. Let's talk about this next matchup. Seems like in your computer you pulled up Conor and Alex. I feel like you want to talk about that one next.
I do, yeah. Conor and Alex. This is, I believe, only the second time in league history that 4 categories have tied. Conor wins 5-3-4. They tied doubles, they tied steals, they tied strikeouts, and they tied saves. That is just a lot of fun. And runs there's only a gap of 1 run. So they really, if Conor had scored 1 more run this week, would have tied 5 categories. This was just a really funny matchup. Neither team played particularly well, I don't think.
No.
Yeah, Conor's pitching wasn't very good. His on base wasn't that great. He did drive in a lot of runs. 53 was one of the top numbers of the week. But yeah, not overall. The chicken tendies are just kind of maybe in my mind the worst team in the league right now. Although both teams hit 16 doubles, which is good, but the chicken tendies still only homered 7 times, only driving in 34 runs. The pitching was just kind of miserable, I'd say. And Conor squeaked by him and to keep on being a part of that 4-way, now 3-way tie for first.
Yeah, I mean, here's what I'll say about Conor. A lot of the times last year we were talking about him just being like the wins aren't that impressive, but he's pulling them off. And this seemed like another example of that. I don't think his team, I mean, like
last week's win was impressive.
Yeah, last week's win was, but like this week was just very much not impressive in any category. I mean, like you said, RBIs, maybe the homers is kind of impressive, but he keeps pulling out the wins. And that's where I'm like, is it the schedule? Is his team just has a knack for this? Like, what is it? And that's what I'm trying to figure out. I do think Conor is still a very good team. He's definitely a playoff team. I think as he showed last year, he's definitely a contender to be able to win a championship. But I'm also like, can he kind of consistently perform at a little higher level? Because that was what would make me feel more comfortable about his team. And I don't know. But he pulled off a win this week. He's what,
5-1-1.
5-1-1 now. He is tied for first place with you and Erik. And he has a lot of the pieces. I wonder if he needs to make another trade or two. What worries me about his team, though, is that unlike last year when he had some of those prospects he's able to trade, I feel like he lacks some of those trade chips that he has this year. But we'll see what happens. I think Conor's done a great job, especially from where he started with this team. And I'm curious to see kind of maybe what adjustments he makes, because I think as much as he's winning right now, I think there's a couple of adjustments he can make that would really take this team to the next level. I don't think it even requires a ton of work. I think it's just a player or two that could really make a difference, like last year when he got Robbie Ray and Sal Perez, for example.
Yeah, no, I think he's a starter away or something like that. I will say matchup MVP goes to probably the one guy who basically made up the entirety of Connor's offense this week. That is Paul Goldschmidt. He hit 4 of Connor's 12 homers. He drove in 11 runs. He had a 462 on base when Connor's team as a whole had a 287. Goldie's hitting well.
Yeah, shout out too to I don't think he had as good of a week as Goldschmidt, which is hard to believe given just how he's performed in the past 2 weeks. But Trevor Story has been knocking the cover off the ball this month. It's good to see him start to hit the ball a bit. I know he really struggled in April, but good to see him come together. And Trevor Story, when he's on the top of his game, is a premier shortstop in fantasy. Connor's going to need him. I think Trevor Story might. You could argue he's Connor's best bat.
I'm not sure I'd say
him
that
or Goldschmidt.
I think Goldschmidt,
Buxton when
healthy.
My problem is Buxton's just like never healthy.
Yeah.
But like okay,
Rhys Hoskins.
I think Trevor Story is one of his top bats. And if Trevor Story's playing well, that's definitely going to help him. Definitely positive to see him 5-1-1. I feel like we had some questions about his team early in the season and in the off season, but he's responded well. So good for Conor. I'll speak to the attendees quickly too. I think this team's kind of still in the throes of a rebuild. Cam and I were actually talking about this earlier. I think they have a lot of prospects that Cam and I both really like. But it's just not this is just not their year. And it was kind of the same with Andrew a year or two before, where you looked at the farm and you're like, there are a lot of pieces who are about to come up, and this team's about to get really good really fast, but they're not quite there yet because a lot of these prospects are taking their lumps, and that's okay. But I think this team has a lot of potential, but we're just not going to see it this year. I don't think so.
I think you're right. I think Julio's turned it around a little bit, but I think, this is just not their year.
I think he has. I wonder if too much of his value has just been driven by the stolen bases.
He homered 3 times this week.
Oh, did he? Okay, so he has hit a little better lately, but I know the stolen bases has been a big part of his value, which I don't think anybody's expecting him to steal as much as he has. But no, Julio. Good to see Julio doing well for him. But I don't know, like, for example, Josh Lowe, CJ Abrams were both up this year and maybe didn't quite live up to the expectations yet, which doesn't mean they're not going to, but not in their first stint.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But next matchup?
Yeah. Which one do you want to talk about next? Not a lot of them were close, really.
None of these were particularly close. I think the closest one ended up being EBO I can't read here. Ruthvik and Jake. You want to talk about that matchup? Because this was our matchup of the week. We both picked Ruthvik to win, and it's interesting because both of us picked Ruthvik to win the first time they played in week 2. And I don't know about you, but we talked about this on air where I was like, maybe I should have picked Jake. Like, as soon as we got off air week 2, we made our picks. Like, maybe I should have picked Jake. And Jake won that one. But Jake did not get off to a good start this week. I don't think he ever really had the lead at any point this week.
I don't think so.
And Ruthvik pulled off a pretty convincing win. And I'm kind of surprised because I think we had a lower opinion of Ruthvik's team going into the year, but Ruthvik's team's now 5-2. I think this team is pretty legit, but what are your thoughts on this matchup before we maybe get into the larger implications?
Yeah, I'm scared of Ruthvik's team. I think both teams played rather well. This might have been the top 2, or at least 2 of the top 3 OBPs of the week. Ruthvik's with 377, Jake's being 350. Both teams scored 50 plus runs. Both teams had a lot of doubles. Both teams just knocked the cover off the ball. Pitching wise, different story. Jake kind of had a lot of strikeouts. He won with 88. Ruthvik had 6 quality starts, 6 saves, and 6 holds. That 666 right there. But neither team was particularly, I guess, rates wise, super great at pitching. I guess Jake had a good whip this week. But yeah, overall, kind of interesting because you expect Ruthvik's pitchers to be a little better than this, but you expect his hitters to be a little worse than this. I don't know. I guess to sum up, both teams hit really well, but Ruthvik hit a little bit better. His best hitter in particular being, I don't know, Rafael Devers probably with his 10 runs, although he only drove in 2, but he did hit 4 doubles as well. I'd say he's matchup MVP, either him or maybe Mike Yastrzemski with his 464 on base. But no, let's go with Devers.
Let's go with Devers. JB Crawford has 600 OBP, but didn't do much else. He only had a single ribby in 2 runs.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, he walked 7 times, so that's a lot of it. But still, yeah, no, that definitely helped boost that number.
It sounds like AL champ batter. You don't do much other than walk.
Yeah. What's wrong with that?
What I will say about Ruthvik's team is his OBP this year. He is leading the league in OBP. It's like me, then him, and then there's like a pretty big gap. And what I will say is, like, we don't think of him as an offensive team, but he has done some decent things offensively this year, and he has gotten a couple pieces. And I know I was skeptical about the acquisitions, for example, of like Glaber in the offseason. I know I have issues with Ryan Mountcastle, and I don't know if he's going to get on base enough to be kind of a competent starting first baseman in fantasy. I think he's like a 280 some OBP. You and I saw that the game yesterday. I forget what it was exactly.
It was bad.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. But he's performing pretty well offensively. It's especially impressive too because like Bieber has not been like the Shane Bieber he was in 2020 when that pitching staff carried his team, and DeGrom's been hurt all year. DeGrom has not started a game. So, but I think Ruthvik's team is pretty solid. I think there's definitely some holes in this team. But I think he has some pieces where he could go out at the trade deadline. He can go acquire another batter, 2 or starting pitcher, whatever, and really shore up this team. And I think he could definitely compete. What I will say about Jake's team is that it's amazing how different things were 2 weeks ago to now. 2 weeks ago, we were talking about him being tied for the top seed with Erik. He really had an opportunity to kind of break away. A lot of the top teams lost last week, which he did as well. And then he lost this week. He's now, I believe, the 5th seed at the playoffs started today, because I also lost this week. And
you tied. I think he'd be tied with you.
He'd be tied with me. I don't know if it was a tiebreaker. I don't know how that would work, because
I think since you haven't played each other, there's not really a tiebreaker.
Yeah, I don't know what the official tiebreaker is, but anyways, this is kind of the downside I was talking about with this team a couple weeks ago. It was like, when he plays better teams, I wonder if this team is going to be exposed a little bit, because you can quantity your way to victory, but that only works if the other team is not putting up the quality. And when you're playing these better teams have quality. And I was a little concerned that he wasn't going to hold up against better teams. And so far he is 1-2-1 against these better teams. He beat Ruthvik once, he lost to Ruthvik once, he tied Erik, and he lost to, who did he lose to last week? Was it EBO? EBO. So we'll see what happens. I still think this is a very good team with a lot of talent, but they're showing some holes. And I think Jake's a wonderful manager. I think Jake does a very good job running this team, and I have no doubt he's going to do what he can to rally around these guys and put this team back in order. But he definitely needs to do that. So it definitely is going to take some work on his end. So that's how I feel.
I think you're right. Last thing I want to say before we move on is Nestor Cortez.
he's been great. And good for Nestor Cortez. I didn't see this coming. Ruthvik was on that hype train all off season, and he was right. Ruthvik has a knack for finding some of these starting pitchers and just really getting them and taking off. So good for him. Let's talk about our next matchup, and it looks like you just put Erik up against Anthony. So
yeah, Erik.
I guess we're talking about that one.
Yeah, Erik versus Anthony. I think this is an interesting one just because it was 8-3-1, the closest remaining one. Erik, it's interesting. He's the last couple weeks hasn't been as great, but he's still, at least this week, over the weekend, definitely boosted his numbers. He finished with 58 runs, 52 RBI, 25 doubles, all great. But again, the pitching rate stats have kind of taken a dip with that 4.52 ERA, 1.34 WHIP. Anthony, in the categories that Erik won, Anthony wasn't particularly close. Like, for example, Erik literally had twice as many doubles, twice as many doubles,
2.5 more.
Yeah, twice as many runs, 3 times as many homers. Anthony only scored or drove in 18 runs. Really, God, Anthony had a rough offensive week. I can't remember the last time I've seen a week this bad on offense. 278 on base percentage. Maybe that's the story here. This team is 0-5-2 now.
The pitching was solid.
The pitching was solid. 2.31 ERA.
It was a hitting. He got swept in the hitting categories.
He did, yeah. And Erik did hit well, and maybe in my mind, I was thinking that he hit worse than he did, maybe just because he started out badly. But because a lot of those counting stats, and he stole 8 bases too, which was second only to me.
So he had a 3. So like the counting offensive categories are very good. The OBP was pretty bad at a 306.
But that's kind of how he's been this year.
Yeah, I don't think this is Erik's best performance. I think he got maybe slightly away with this because he was facing a little weaker team. I think there's some of these teams this week who would have given him more of a fight, but sometimes it's just kind of how it works out. You know, you play who's in front of you and you do a good job. Or you're able to win or you're able to lose. And I think Erik's done a good job of that this season. And to be clear, Erik, at least when he did the roto on Monday, and the roto might have changed since then, but Erik has been doing a very good job overall. So this is not a critique of Erik's team at all. I think Erik's been the best team this year. And I think Erik probably is the best team right now, but maybe this is just a down week for the way he performed, but I think this team is capable of better, especially on the pitching side. And, I think this team needs to step up on the pitching side from where it was this week. But overall, I think this worked out nicely for him. He performed solid on the hitting side. I think this team's still set up very well. As with Anthony, though, I know we talked a lot about Yuki and Daniel being the worst teams in the league earlier this offseason. You think Anthony might be in that title for like a bottom 2 team right now?
I don't know. I think right now it might be the Tendies and the Bellies.
Yeah.
But I think Anthony's down there. Especially with him having the worst record in the league at the moment, or maybe tied. Anthony, he's the only team without any wins, but I think on winning percentage, he might be tied with the Tendies.
Yeah,
and EBO. No, EBO has a second tie now, but
he's played a couple of recent matchups hard because he tied me. He came close to tying you, although you kind of pulled away the second half last Sunday. Yeah. It's not like this team's not playing hard. It's just I also came off a rough stretch. I mean, then Erik. I mean, that's about as hard of a 3 weeks as you're going to see.
Exactly. The thing is, he just did not put up any sort of fight at all this week, at least hitting wise. Pitching wise, he did.
Yeah.
I'll say that. But I think it remains to be seen. Yeah, if he's facing one of the weaker teams, I'm sure he'll win every once in a while. He's not going to obviously win 0 matchups this year. but
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, this is the first year he didn't win the OTP simulation, so so maybe that bodes poorly.
It's interesting because he was one of the better starting teams last season. And it's not quite working out this year. I think there's a lot of talent on that team. You know, he's got Trout, he's got Alec Manoah, he has Monty Grandal, you know, a couple other players. I look at him like these are very solid foundational pieces. I just wonder if he lacks some of the depth. Do I think this is a playoff team this year? Probably not with the 0-5-2 start.
Yeah, that's a given.
Do I think this team is better than their 0-5-2 start has suggested? I think so. But I think what Anthony has done the past couple of weeks, which I've liked, is he has kind of started to trade some of these older pieces away. He's acquired some interesting prospects. I think Adele Amador, for example, it is pretty interesting. He's cracked the top 100 of a lot of these fantasy prospect lists. A couple other guys like that. I really like the Bailey Ober deal for him. I think he's a young starter. So I think Anthony's kind of recognizing a little bit that, like, hey, like maybe it is the time to do a little bit of retooling, rebuilding, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I just I don't think he's quite in a position to win now. But I do think there's a lot of talent on this team. He can build off of a lot of young talent. So you know, Al Thomas just came up too, for example. So him and Manila, just only same name, and Alec with a K.
Alec with a K. You don't see a lot of Alex with a K.
You really don't. I was I did not think about that. But maybe
he can change his team name to the Alec. I don't know. Something with
Team Alec. Well, hey,
that the smart Alex.
Resnick also ends with the K.
Yeah.
Maybe he just needs to acquire a bunch of players whose names end with K.
But anyway,
you look half asleep here, so I bet you don't have any.
I don't have anything else other than
for context. Cammy is currently like curled up here in a blanket. He is.
It's 1 a.m.
Yeah, me, who's usually up all night studying or doing whatever, wide awake, having a grand old time. Cam here looks like he's about to fall asleep.
I'm about to fall asleep. I'm going to declare matchup MVP to be Jose Ramirez because he drove in 11 runs and stole 3 bases with a 400 plus OBP.
God, I hate that Erik has him.
God, yeah, he's so good.
He's so good.
Indeed. Let's talk about my matchup because this is I beat Andrew 10-2. But it's interesting because it's at a certain point on Saturday, it was looking like Andrew was rallying. He got it to 7-4-1 and was looking like he could flip another couple categories. But he had a rough Sunday and I did not. And I ended up winning 10-2 with really not being very far from it being 12-0. I was less than 100th of a point off in whip, and I was 1 double behind. I think my team's solid, doing well. The 10 steals are increasing my lead in that category for the league. Somehow it's weird that I'm the best stolen base team. It feels unnatural. I'm not sure what to do about it, but I'm stealing a ton of bases somehow, but I'm still hitting a lot of homers. My on base isn't that great. But the other big thing that happened for my team was I tied the quality starts record, and I would have broken it had I not benched Tyler Mahle today. I
don't know why you didn't start Tyler Mahle.
Because whip was close and a lot of categories were close, and I didn't want to lose whip.
I didn't think you were going to lose regardless.
I don't know. I didn't want to lose whip, you know. I don't know. I would have broken the record. I would have had 11 quality starts out of 12 starts.
Yeah, I mean, what I will say about your team is I think you have been pitching very well, very low ERA, very low with this year. I think you found a good mix of pitchers. I think you found a good mix of hitters too. You've had some guys who have Aaron Judge is like knocking the ball off the cover.
Knocking the ball off the cover.
Knocking the cover off the ball. It's 1 a.m. I think your team's kind of rolling right now. It's like, yeah, I think you're maybe a little nitpicky because it's your team and you want things to be perfect, but like, I think how much better could you be expecting for this team? This team's been awesome this year.
Yeah, no, I'm 5-1-1. I've got I've got the inside track for another first round bye for the second year in a row. My pitching's been great. I've stumbled into Colin Poche, who I guess got 2 saves this week somehow.
Why didn't I add Colin Poche?
I don't know.
Fucking hell, man.
He didn't even pitch amazingly, but he got that. I'm gonna give my MVP though to Shane McClanahan because my pitching really, my hitting was fine, but my pitching was really good.
Shane, did I call him Shane? Shane McClanahan. I kind of combined a Shane with the L and the McClanahan. Shane McClanahan has been awesome this year.
Yeah, no, this week especially, 2 quality starts, 12 innings, 16 Ks, 1 earned run between the two. Just incredible. I was expecting because for forever I was like, yeah, I'm going to trade McClanahan to Yuki at some point where it's just a matter of what the offer is. And now he's on my team for good.
I think McClanahan might be a top 5 fantasy starting pitcher right now.
God, he might be.
I think it's like Cole, Woodruff, and Burns might be up there, and maybe McClanahan might be 4, or maybe Bueller's 4, and then McClanahan 5, something like that. But I think you legitimately have 2 top 5 fantasy starters right now between Bueller and McClanahan.
Yeah, I think so. Before we move on, let's talk about Andrew though. He pitched decently well, at least quantity wise, with the 72 Ks, the 6 quality starts. He had a really good week from Tyler Anderson. I want to mention him with 2 quality starts. He's off to a great start to the season too.
The Dodgers, man, they turn these guys around and just ship them out. Just find the next guy, but good for him.
Anthony cut him.
Oh, Anthony was probably scarred by Pirate Tyler Anderson. That's probably who he has in his mind. I think Tyler just was a Pirate. That feels right.
Yeah.
But I think Andrew seems to the low OBP again, and part of it you could be a lot of teams have low OBPs this year, but also Andrew, I feel more than other teams rosters a lot of these low OBP guys. I think he just needs to figure out how to get that up a bit. So I think a higher OBP is going to get him more runs, going to get him more ribbies, more, some of these other offensive categories. And while I think there is a very nice start with this offense, there's a lot of very good core foundational pieces. I wonder if he's going to add a piece or 2 that's really going to help him start compete. I think you and I both talked about this. We thought this could be a year he could compete, but probably next year.
Mm-hmm. Probably next year. But this year he's
holding his own.
He's in that 7 spot right now and kind of digging his heels in there.
Yeah, I just think the way some of these other teams are playing, I think he's going to be on the outside looking in when it's all said and done. But I don't think he's I don't think it's a failure from him. I just think that he is maybe looking a little more towards next year. I feel like the reason too. So I told you this a lot, Cam, where I was I think it takes until Memorial Day-ish before you could really go and maybe make evaluations about some of these teams. And I feel like this is the first time I'm really sitting down and evaluating some of these teams as we're talking about them a little more holistically than I would before, where I'd be maybe talking about how they're doing from a week to week performance. So I feel with Andrew, for example, I've talked about that with my team a bit. We just talked about that with Anthony's team. So I think we're starting to see who these teams are. I'm not saying these teams can't change. I'm saying trades are going to affect things. I'm not saying the teams are going to get no hot streaks or cold streaks, but I think we're finally starting to maybe be able to objectively evaluate teams a little bit and maybe have changed opinions from where we were before the season with some of these teams. And we can't just say, hey, it's a small sample size, because 7 weeks is plenty of time at this point.
Yeah, it's the end of May. That's been plenty of time. You are right.
It's been almost 2 months.
Yeah, but moving on to a team that I don't know what to make of. Yuki was fifth in Roto. Honestly, his Roto is probably better than it was before this week. I mean, the on base was great. Overall, I mean, he saved a lot of games. Or actually, the more I look, the more I'm thinking that maybe this was just a bad performance from the Bellies because Yuki did hit 22 doubles, which is a lot, and he had a 364 on base. 43 runs, 40 RBIs is good, but not great. I guess he didn't pitch well, but the Bellies pitched really poorly. But either way, it's a 10-2 victory. He improves to 2-4-1. The Bellies dropped to 2-5. Yeah. Any thoughts on either of these teams?
Yeah. What I'll say about Yuki's team is I think we've talked about this for a couple of weeks where like Yuki's fought really hard.
Yeah.
And I think his team definitely is pretty solid. I think it's better than we gave it credit for before the season. But I wonder if it's just not enough. You know, he's going to beat teams like the Bellies, and I thought Yuki performed very solid this week. And I think he's going to beat teams up like the Bellies, and this is what he probably should do. He kind of falls in that Andrew range for me, right? Where I'm like, solid team, kind of on the border here. He's going to compete for the 7 or 8 seed, but I don't know if he's necessarily going to be able to come up on top and take a playoff spot. But I'm a lot more impressed with Yuki's team than I was before the season. And I think Yuki has done a great job running this team so far. He's picked up a number of pretty solid players. I think it's a great week by him. I mean, as for the Bellies, I don't really have anything different to say than I usually have. Like, this team's just not set in the lineup.
Yeah, no, nothing.
And that's going to just keep hurting them.
They did pick up, make some moves. They picked up Brad Boxberger. They consistently don't have a high quantity of pitchers who go during the week. Like, they only use 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 pitchers throughout the week.
And you're not starting all of them consistently.
Exactly. I'll give matchup MVP to Austin Riley, who I had a 414 on base and hit 3 home runs.
Good for him, because he was like, he's not had as good of a start as he did last year. So good for him for picking it up this week.
Yeah. Honorable mention, Dansby Swanson stole a couple bases with a 500 plus OBP. But yeah, no, that was week 7. Are you ready to talk about week 8?
I am, as long as my hiccups allow it. How did I get the hiccup? You have cursed me with your hiccups.
I have.
Week
8, couple matchups to watch. For the top 6 teams are squaring off against each other. I am facing Ruthvik. I'm terrified. Conor is facing Jake. Both of these matchups, I wouldn't even know which one to pick as the more interesting one.
I think they're basically tied as the most interesting matchup. I think any matchup where 2 of the top 6 teams right now are playing each other has to be up top. And I think there's a lot of implications early on where even if it's not going to decide any playoff seedings right now, but these head-to-heads are really important right now to where later on with tiebreakers and stuff, it's going to help make some of these decisions. I think these are both going to be very good matchups. I think the other matchup I will say is me versus Yuki. This is a rematch of the matchup where I tied Yuki earlier in the year. And I believe I lost to Yuki the last time I played him in 2021.
Yeah, in 2021.
So I haven't beaten Yuki since our first matchup in 2021. Obviously, I'm still a little salty about our tie. I'd like to pull off a win. I have this weird thing right now where I win in all the weeks that are even weeks, and I either tie or lose to Erik in the odd weeks. So tie to EBL in an odd week. So maybe this week I'll beat Yuki, but I'm not entirely sure.
I think you'll probably be fine. But
we said that like against Anthony too. We said that the first time I played Yuki. Am I really fine?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and pick these matchups though.
Let's do that.
Do
you want to pull up the command center spreadsheet so we can type them in?
Yeah.
Usually I type them in, but I'll let you type it.
We'll figure.
It's your computer.
Yeah, it's my computer that we are sitting around.
We are sitting by
week 8. But why don't you give us a recap of how we picked in week 7? A lot better than some of our other weeks.
Yeah, we went 5-0-1. Cam and I picked the exact same matchups this week. we picked every matchup correctly but mine. We both picked myself to win. I tied. If I would have scored one more run, we would have both went 6-0 this week.
We would have. That would have.
I don't think you and I went 6-0 last year at any point.
I can't imagine we had.
Yeah, that would have been a first. As it went, we won 5-0-1. I am now 23-11 and 8 on the season. Cam is 22-8-12. That means Cam still has a better record than me when you convert the ties, I believe. That puts Cam at 28 and 14. That puts me at 27 and 15. I believe that still means you have a better record by like a game-ish, game and a half.
Yeah, something like that. I think I want to say a game and a half.
Yeah, it is 1:17 in the morning, and I have beer, and I'm not a mathematician, so I can't do math off the top of my head in these conditions.
Well,
I need perfect conditions. It needs to be a bright, sunny day, and I need to have like 3 coffees in me. Is it time to make our picks?
Yeah.
You have you finally typed in all of them? I'm just kind of riffing here while I'm waiting for you to type them all in.
They're all in. I'm picking first because I am winning. I think I will beat Ruthvik and Nick. I think Jake versus Conor is interesting.
That's a crapshoot.
That's a crapshoot. I'm gonna go for the tie. This will be the tie. I think Conor plays well every other week. And this is his time to play well. Although Jake's a good team, I think that'll put Conor in a good enough position to tie. I think EBO will beat Alex and Zach. I think Andrew will beat Anthony. I think Eric's gonna have no problem with Daniel and Greg. He might even 12-0 him. And I think you will beat Yuki, but it'll be close, It'll be interesting. He'll give you some trouble. You'll be frustrated at some point over the weekend.
That's what you said when I played him. All right. You did not type any of those. That's what I usually do when you say, come on, Cam. Damn it, Cam.
You can just go. I'll type it.
You know what I miss saying? I miss saying "damn it, Cam" to you in person. I said that to you the other day while your dad was down here. Your dad was like, "Yeah, that's right," and I was like, "I'm so proud of that. Your dad gets it." All right, I will pick. I'm gonna start with the easier matchups to pick. I'll pick EBO to beat Alex and Zach. I'm gonna pick Andrew to beat Anthony. I will pick Erik to beat Daniel and Greg. I will pick myself to beat Yuki, but I think you're right. It'll be close. I will be frustrated all matchup because Yuki's one of those few teams that just frustrates the hell out of me. I'm going to pick Conor to beat Jake. I don't know. I think Conor's team pulls out wins very well. There's something about his team, and Jake seems something a little bit. And I feel pretty good about picking Conor's team here. I don't want to cop out and pick a tie. And speaking of not wanting to pick ties, I'm going to pick Ruthvik to beat you.
Ooh.
I just have a feeling. Ruthvik's team's been playing well. I think your team's been playing well too. This is not a critique of your team. I just my gut's saying Ruthvik's going to find a way to pull out a W.
He's playing great lately.
Well, he has been. Yeah, so it's like when 2 great teams are playing, you have to pick what. I could pick at the cop out answer. That's a tie, or I could go with the gut, and the gut says Ruthvik's gonna find a way to win. It's gonna be like 6-5-1. It's gonna go down to the last day of the matchup.
It will. It'll be tough.
But yeah, I'm picking Ruthvik. Also, to be a little different from you, because you picked you. It's no fun picking you to win.
Well, okay. So those are our predictions. Yeah, looking forward to week number 8. We're getting close to halfway through the season. It's hard to believe.
No,
it feels like it just began.
It very much felt like we just began. But my God, it's been a fun one. It is. I have not expected the season to start out this way. We have I don't know about you, but this is very different than what I thought we would do.
Yeah, no, but I love to see different teams in top, in the front.
No, especially
as long as one of them is me.
Especially like Ruthvik and Jake. I know both of them have made playoffs before. But we haven't really seen him advance like a bunch or anything. And I think it's fun to see him up top. I think it's fun to see how even some of these teams at the bottom, I think a lot of them have made some strides. I think Andrew's making some strides. I think Alex with his prospects, he's making a lot of strides. He might not see it at the moment, but a lot of these guys are developing. I know it's going to take time. So I think this is an exciting time to be in the league. I think this has been the most competitive the league has been. I feel like every year we're slowly starting to say that, as we get some of these new owners in, as they're starting to be more competitive, as they're starting to make moves. So I'm excited. And honestly, like I could see things changing up a lot in between now and playoff time. So I'm excited.
Yeah, no, I am too. It's going to be a great rest of the season. And yeah, that's everything we had for today. I want to thank you, Sahil, for being in my presence.
Yeah, there you go. That's the right way to say that. And
yeah, until next time, let's go get some sleep.
Yeah,
it's
very
way past 1 a.m.
It's way past Cam's bedtime. This is my prime time. This is Cam's bedtime. God, I don't know how you're still awake.
All right, I won't be for much longer.
Yeah, no, me neither.
This podcast is good.